Today I want to talk to you about lesson 7-1. 7-1 has to do with the distributed property. And distributed property is pretty easy once you think about what does the word distribute mean. If we think about the word distribute, I like to think of it like a quarterback. When the quarterback plays the game, he has to distribute the ball to his wide receivers or to the other players. He has to give that ball to every one of them. And in football, we like to say a good quarterback is somebody who can distribute the ball evenly to all his players. Not one player gets all the touches and another player is left out. A good quarterback will distribute the ball to every player. And the same is true in math. If we look at an equation like A times the sum of B plus C, and we want to use the distributive property, the distributive property says to multiply a sum or difference, multiply each term on the outside by the term on the inside. And so in order to do this, we have to know what does a term mean. And a term can be just a number, a term can be a variable, or it can be a combination. In this problem, we're going to distribute A to both the terms inside, B and C. And I do it with multiplication. These arcs are the communication. So when I ask you to show me the distributive property, you need to show me the arcs. So if I'm going to distribute or give A to B, I'm going to use multiplication. So this problem really would look like A times B, and remember I can either put an X in the middle, a dot, or just put the letters together, put the variables together to show multiplication. I'm going to keep that addition sign and I'm going to give that A to C, A times C. So A times B plus A times C is the same as this problem over here because I've distributed or given that A to both B and C. And that's the basics of the distributive property. I can look at a problem, take the same concept, 5 times the sum of 6 plus 7, and the distributive property says I have to multiply each term on the outside by the term on the inside. So here's my communication to show that I know what the distributive property is, and I use multiplication. The multiplication sign is optional. I like to do it because it helps me remember what I'm doing. I'm taking 5 times 6, which is 30. Then I'm adding it to 5 times 7, which is 35. Then I work down the row. 30 plus 35 is going to be 65. So 5 times the sum of 6 plus 7 is the same as this, and this is my standard answer, 65. Let's go ahead and look at another example. In this example, we're going to deal with 9 minus 1, and we're going to multiply that times 20. Again, this is read as the sum of 9 minus 1 times 20, or 20 times the difference, this was a difference of 9 minus 1. So I show my communication, and I do 20 times 9, and then 20 times 1. 20 times 9, 9 is 18, 180, minus 20 times 1 is 20. So now I have 160. This is all perfectly acceptable communication. This or this You choose. But this is how we communicate the distributive property. What I don't want to see is this. I don't want to see us take and I don't want to see this. How did you get it? You may have the right answer, but because you're missing this, I don't know how you got that. Maybe it was a stroke of genius. Maybe you need to explain yourself. Always communicate. There's nothing wrong with talking. There's nothing wrong with communicating in math. Let's go ahead and take a look at another example. Let's throw some variables in there. Let's take 4 times the sum of x plus 5. Here I don't know what x is, so I can't substitute. All I can do is solve. Well, this looks like distributive property, so I'm going to distribute this through multiplication. And I'm going to wind up with 4x plus 4 times 5. So 4 times x, I don't know what x is. I'm going to leave it as 4x. Because the other term isn't going to be in an x, I know I'm just going to have to keep the add sign. And 4 times 5, I can do that part. And that's going to be 20. So 4x plus 20 is the most simplest way I can solve this problem, or the most complete way. If I actually knew what x was, then I'd be able to solve it just like the other examples that we've looked at. And that's really the basics. One more little piece of note. Any of these problems, the number can come inside or before the parentheses or after the parentheses. So it's completely acceptable to see a problem written like this and still use distribution property. You just distribute the other way. What do you think you might do if you had a fraction on the outside, like this? Could you still distribute? And the answer would be yes. I can still distribute this. If my calculator will handle fractions, then I can just type in -1/2. Or I might need to convert -1/2 to a decimal and have it as -0.5. So -0.5 times 2 would be -1. -1/2 times 3, -1.5. Then I can add those together. -1 plus negative, that's going to keep me in the negative. That's going to be a -2.5 would be my final answer. So even though this number looks different on the outside, I still follow the same rules. And I distribute through multiplication always. Distributive property says to multiply a sum or difference by each number or each term outside by the term on the inside. Your homework is page 256 or 294, 295. (1) through 34. Please ask questions, and remember, give that term on the outside to everything on the inside. Follow this pattern of A times the sum of B plus C equals A times B plus A times C, and you'll be just fine. Show your communication and ask if you need help.